sage Pramati. Markandeya says, the king stopped fighting at the request of Narada. Nabag married the Vishaya girl. After the marriage, the king ordered Nabag to follow Vishaya's occupation. Nabag got engaged in activities like animal husbandry and agriculture. With the passage of time, a son was born and who was named Balandan. When he grew up, his mother entrusted him the job of looking after the cows. Balandan knew nothing about the job he was entrusted with. He went to Sage Neep and told his problem. Sage Neep understood everything and taught him the nuances of handling various weapons, as a result of which, he became a master in this art. After this, Balandan went to Vajurat, the son of Pitravya, and demanded his share in the kingdom of his great-grandfather. Vajurat refused to give anything by saying, being the son of Vishaya, you are not entitled to become a king. Balandan became very angry and attacked Vajurat with a huge army. In this battle, Vajurat was defeated. Now, Balandan had control over the entire earth. He returned to his father, Nabag, in order to hand over the reign of the kingdom. He had won in a battle. But Nabag refused to take anything by saying, I have been cursed by my father to become of Vishaya. I cannot go against his wishes by taking over the responsibility of a king, as this would disturb the peace of my ancestors who are in heaven, and even I would not attain liberation. The second thing is that you have won this kingdom by your power and strength. It will not be proper for me to rule over this kingdom. Suprabha, the wife of Nabag, was listening to their conversation. She could not stop laughing. She said, you are not of Vishaya, because I too belong to a Kshatriya family. During ancient times, a king named Sudva had a friend, Nala. One day both of them went to the forest to hunt. In the forest, Nala saw sage Pramati's wife and became enchanted by her immense beauty. He wanted to marry and he tried to forcibly abduct her. Being a chaste woman, Pramati's wife started shouting for help. Sage Pramati heard her screams and arrived at the site. He became enraged when he saw Nala trying to abduct his wife and King Sudva doing nothing to protect her. Pramati requested King Sudva to protect his wife from Nala. King Sudva lied to Sage Pramati about his caste, to help his friend, Nala. He said, I cannot help you because I am of Vishaya. You must go to any Kshatriya to take help. Sage Pramati was exasperated. He fumed, you will certainly become Vishaya as you have lied to me about your caste. Balandan and Vatsapari. Nabag told his wife, I would never accept the kingdom for the second time, which I had relinquished at the instruction of my father. He then instructed his son to rule over the kingdom he had won. Following his father's instructions, Balandan started ruling over his kingdom. Later on, he got married and begot a son named Vatsapari. Vatsapari was married to Sonda when he attained youthhood. Vatsapari married her after killing the demon Kujuramba. There was a king named Vijuat. He had two sons whose names were Sunitai and Sumati. One day, while Vijuat was having his usual walk, he saw a large pit. He became very curious. Just then, a sage arrived at the scene whose name was Suvarat. Pointing his finger towards the pit, the king asked Suvarat as to what it was. The sage said, a demon by the name of Kujuramba lives inside this pit. He controls all the events, which occur on this earth and in heaven. He possesses a mace called Sund, and which was made by Vishwakarma. This large pit which you see is the result of the assault he made with his mace. This demon is very cruel and wicked. He torments the deities and destroys the oblation sites of the sages. There is one very peculiar characteristic related with his mace. The mace would become powerless if touched by a woman. But this is only a temporary change because it regains its power the next day. But this fact is unknown to the demon. After saying this, sage Suvarat went on his way. King Vidurat returned to his palace and consulted his ministers. His daughter, Mudavati, was listening to their conversation. One day, the demon abducted Mudavati. The king sent both his sons accompanied by a huge army to bring her back, but the demon defeated them. The king made a declaration that he will marry his daughter to anybody who brings back his daughter and sons from the clutches of the demon. Hearing his declaration, Vatsapari came to Vidurat and said, "Give me your permission. I will bring back your daughter and your sons after releasing them from the clutches of the demon." Vidurat gave the permission. Vatsapari entered into the netherland through that large pit. A tremendous battle ensued between him and the demon. This battle continued for 3 days. On the final day of the battle, the demon tried to take the help of his mace and went to grab hold of it. But sensing that the demon was going to pick up the mace, she immediately touched the mace, as a result of which it became powerless. Being unaware of this happening, the demon attacked Vatsapari with that powerless mace. But he could not harm Vatsapari. Ultimately, Vatsapari was successful in killing the demon. Vatsapari released all 3 of them, Suniti, Sumati and Mudavati, from the demon's captivity and brought them back to the king's palace. After the death of the demon, Sheshnag acquired the mace. Mudavati's name was later changed to Sundar after that mace. King Vidurat became very pleased and married Mudavati to Vatsapari. The kingdoms of Pranzu, Prajati and Kanatra. Markandeya says, Sundar gave birth to 12 sons. Their names were Pranzu, Pravir, Shor, Suchakra, Vikrama, Krama, Bala, Balak, Chand, Prakand, Suvikrama, and Swarup. After growing up, Pranzu became the king. Pranzu had a son named Prajati. Prajati had 5 sons, among whom Kanatra was one of them. Kanatra became a mighty king and was very famous for his religiousness and virtuosity. He distributed the kingdoms among his brothers. Shauri was made the king of the eastern region, Udavasu of the southern region, Muni of the western region, while Maharati was made the king of northern region. One day, a minister of Shauri, Vishwavadi, instigated him against his brother Kanatra by saying, "O king, you must try to capture your brother's kingdom, as your kingdom is too small for your descendants to rule over. A time may come when your descendants would be forced to choose agriculture as their occupation, because the continuous distribution of your kingdom among your progenies would leave almost nothing for them." Shauri said, "My brother is so kind to me. Why should I cheat him like that?" The minister said, "The duty of the king is only to look after the kingdom's interest. The relation should not come in the way." At last, the minister was successful in convincing him. After some time, the wicked minister also influenced the rest of his brothers. Ultimately, King Kanatra was left all alone, as all of his ministers and even his sons were misguided by Vishwavadi. Vishwavadi appointed 4 priests of Kanatra as the supervisor of yajas. One day, while the priests were performing yaja, 4 agresses appeared from the sacrificial fire and tried to attack King Kanatra. But they could not harm him because of his virtuous character. They then turned towards Vishwavadi and the priests and killed all of them. Thus, Vishwavadi bore the fruits of evil deeds. King Kanatra. Markandeya says, people present at the oblation site were shocked to see the dead bodies of Vishwavadi and the 4 priests, When Kanitra got this news, people present at the ablation site were shocked. Kanitra went to Vashishtu and asked him the reason about the death of his brother's minister and the four priests. Got this news, Vashishtu revealed the conspiracy hatched by Vishwavadi to kill him. Kanitra, in a sad tone, said, "Shame on me, as I have been the cause of the death of the Brahmins. Had I not taken birth as a human being, my brother's priests won't have died. I am the real culprit. What should I do now? Where should I go?" The remorseful Kanitra decided to relinquish his kingdom and go to the forest to do penance so that he could get liberated from the grave sins of causing death to the Brahmins. He went to the forest accompanied by his 3 queens after appointing his son Kshup as the king. He did a severe penance for 350 years. After that, he died because of his bad health. All the 3 queens died too and went to heaven along with him. King Vevanshaw. Markandeya says, King Kshup ruled justly in the same way as his father Kanitra did. Kshup's wife was Pramatha. They had a son who was handsome and mighty. He had defeated all the kings and annexed their kingdom. He was married to Nandini, the princess of Vidarbha. Nandini gave birth to a son who was named Vevanshaw. Vevanshaw was a very mighty king. During his reign, the earth had become very populated. The enemies of King Vevanshaw were very afraid of him, but his subjects were satisfied by his just rule. King Vevanshaw had performed numerous yajas, and after ruling for a long time, he attained martyrdom while fighting a battle. King Kanitra. Markandeya says, Kanitra was the son of King Vevanshaw. He was very brave and valiant. The Gandharvas had proclaimed that no one could match Kanitra's benevolence, who had donated the whole earth after accomplishing 10,000 yajas. Kanitra had given so much wealth as donations to the Brahmins that there was no need for them to take donations for the rest of their lives. Kanitra was sonless. One day, he went to the forest to hunt an animal for sacrificial purpose needed during Pitra Yaja. The performance of this yaja was supposed to bless him with a son. In the forest, he saw a deer that was cognizant of his desire. The deer requested him by saying, "Oh, king, you can get my flesh by killing me." The king was very amazed. He asked the deer as to why it was willing to get sacrificed. The deer replied, "Oh, king, I don't have any offspring. For this reason, I consider my life as useless." While the conversation was going on between the king and the deer, another deer came near them and expressed his desire to get sacrificed by saying, "Oh, king, please kill me and get the flesh, because the flesh of this sonless deer would be of no help to you." The king was astonished. He asked the second deer as to why he was willing to die. The second deer replied, "Oh, king, I have numerous sons and daughters, and this worries me a lot. Whenever my children go out in search of food, I become very anxious till they have returned to me safely. This way, I pass the whole day and night in anxiety." The king was very confused. He said, "I don't know who is superior between a sonless person and a person who have many children. Although I needed the flesh for the accomplishment of Pitra Yaja, but now after meeting both of you, I have become confused. It is true that a man has to face all kinds of sorrows because of their children, but yet a sonless man is not complete and remains indebted. So, I have decided to get a son by doing a penance just like my predecessors did in the past." Corandum. Markandeya says, King Kanitra went to the bank of the river Gomti and started doing a severe penance to please Indra. After being pleased by his devotion and eulogy, Indra appeared before him. he said to Khainindra, "O king, I am very much pleased by your devotion. Demand anything you wish." The king replied, "O Lord, if you are really pleased with me, then bless me with a religious and virtuous son, because I am a sonless person." Indra blessed him by saying, "So be it," and then disappeared. Khainindra returned to his palace. In course of time, a son was born to him. He named the child Balashva. When Balashva grew up, he became the king after the death of his father. He annexed many kingdoms after defeating his enemies and imposed taxes on them. After some time, his enemies not only stopped paying him the taxes but also regrouped themselves and recaptured their lost territories. Balashva had become weak due to the constant battles. He had only the capital city in his possession and had lost the other territories. One day, his enemies surrounded his capital. Balashva became restless as he would be no match for his enemies. In a sorrowful mood, he heaved deeply, covering his face by both his hands. The exhaled air resulted into the manifestation of numerous valiant fighters, chariots, elephants and horses. Very soon, this huge army covered the whole area. This army battled under the leadership of Balashva. Ultimately, the enemies were defeated. Later on, King Balashva became famous as Grandam because of the huge army, which had manifested from between both the trembling hands of Balashva. King of Akshit. Birth of Avikshit and abduction of Shailini. Markandeya says, Shubharata, the daughter of Viryakandra, had decided to marry Grandam. A son was born to them who was named as Avikshit. The astrologers had predicted a very bright future for him. Avikshit learnt lessons in handling all kinds of weapons from the son of Kanva. In a very short time, he attained mastery in the art of weaponry. Vara, Gauri, Subhadra, Nba, Lilavati, Manyavati and Kumridwati had chosen Avikshit as their husband in a Swayamvara. Avikshit had also forcibly married numerous other women. Once, a Swayamvara was conducted in the palace of the king of Vishnu for his daughter, Sudati Shailini. Avikshit was present in the Swayamvara. But Sudati, due to her arrogant nature, did not choose Avikshit as her husband. Hence, he forcibly abducted her by defeating the other kings. The fact that a single man had defeated all of them had made the other kings ashamed of themselves. All of them decided to fight Avikshit unitedly. They picked up their arms and marched towards Avikshit with a huge army. Avikshit defeated, liberation and disenchantment. Markandeya says, a ferocious battle ensued between Avikshit's army and the other kings. Both sides fought bravely and Avikshit managed to kill many of the kings but was outnumbered and got severely wounded. Avikshit was finally made captive. Avikshit and Sudati Shailini were brought to the king of Vishnu. The king instructed Sudati Shailini to choose any king as her husband, but she refused this offer. The king then requested his astrologer to choose an auspicious day for her marriage. The astrologer said to the king, "O king, the present time is not auspicious for marriage, but don't worry, very soon, the princess would get married at the advent of the most auspicious moment." When King Grandam came to know about his son's defeat and captivity, he consulted his friends. All of them decided to attack the kingdom of Vishnu and release Avikshit from captivity. Grandam marched towards the kingdom of Vishnu followed by a huge army. A tremendous battle was fought for 3 days. Grandam became victorious in this battle. At last, Avikshit was rescued from his captivity. King Vishnu decided to marry his daughter with Avikshit, but Avikshit was disillusioned with life. He said to Vishnu, I can never accept such a woman as my wife who has witnessed my defeat. I have decided to renounce life. So, it would be better if you marry your daughter with somebody else. King Vishnu asked his daughter to choose any other king as her husband, as Avikshit was not willing to marry her. But the princess wanted to marry Avikshit and believed that he still remained an undefeated king because he had fought single-handedly with all the kings. He was defeated only because of unfair means adopted by his jealous rivals in the battle. I shall accept only Avikshit as my husband, otherwise I shall remain unmarried, said the princess. King Krandam requested his son to marry the princess, but Avikshit turned down even his father's request. Seeing the futility of his advice, Krandam returned to his kingdom. Avikshit too went along with him. Sudati Shalini went in the forest to do penance. She observed a fast for 3 months. She became very weak but still continued with her penance. The deities felt sorry at her condition. They sent an envoy to persuade her to discontinue with her penance. The envoy requested her to stop torturing herself. You would be a mother of a Chakravarti king who would be mighty and powerful, said the envoy. Sudati Shalini said, how can I become a mother without a husband? I have decided that nobody except Avikshit will be my husband. But he has turned down my proposal. So, I have vowed to remain unmarried in this life. The envoy said, oh, great soul. I have been asked not to reveal much. You must take care of your health. Due to the virtues of your penance, you will certainly become a mother. Sudati, following her instructions, broke her fast. Avikshit promises his father to get married. Markandeya says, once, Veera, the wife of King Krandam and mother of Avikshit, had taken a vow to accomplish a very arduous penance. But this could only be accomplished with Krandam's and Avikshit's assistance. Krandam had assured her that he would provide all the wealth required for the accomplishment of that austerity, while Avikshit had assured her of physical help. Veera commenced her arduous austerity named Kamikak Virata. This particular Virata had a peculiar characteristic, and that was, any demand made during the course of the Virata ought to be fulfilled at any cost, failing which meant forfeiting all the virtues of this arduous austerity. King Krandam was consulting his minister about the means that would change Avikshit's decision regarding his marriage. The ministers said that as Krandam had become old, there was an urgent need for his successor. The question was that who would become king after Avikshit, as he had decided to remain unmarried. This thought was tormenting all of them. Suddenly, King Krandam heard the priest who was assisting Queen Veera in the accomplishment of the Kamikak Virata, telling somebody, the queen is busy performing the Kamikak Virata. What is your demand? I promise, it will be fulfilled by the queen no matter how extraordinary it may be. Avikshit too arrived at the scene. He promised that their demands would be met without delay, as it was obligatory for the success of Kamikak Virata, which his mother was performing. Seeing the time as opportune, King Krandam said before the people could say anything, "Oh, son, I have a demand. Promise me that you will fulfill it." Avikshit gave his word. The king said that he aspired for a grandson, but this was impossible unless he, Avikshit, got married. Initially, Avikshit tried to convince Krandam that it was an impossible task, as he had vowed to remain a celibate, but ultimately he had to change his mind to honor his words. Avikshit rescues Shalini. Markandeya says, once, Avikshit had gone for a hunt in the forest when suddenly, he heard a female voice shouting for help. He proceeded in the direction of the voice. After reaching there, he saw Danus, a demon, son Drakshur, holding a lady by her hair. The woman was crying. "I am the wife of Avikshit. This wicked demon is trying to abduct me." Avikshit was surprised as to how could the lady claim that she was his wife. He apprehended that it must be the illusionary tactics of the demon to trap him. But despite his apprehensions, he went near the wailing woman to release her from the clutches of that demon. He warned the demon of dire consequences if he did not release her. The demon left the woman and attacked Avikshit. A tremendous duel was fought. In the end, Avikshit severed the head of that demon. The deities were very pleased at Drakshur's death. They praised Avikshit for his bravery. They asked him to demand any boon. Avikshit demanded a valiant son for himself as per the aspirations of his father, Karandam. The deities said, "You would get your son from this very woman you have rescued. The child would become a very mighty king after growing up." Being unaware of the real identity of Shailini, he told the deities, "I had vowed to remain a bachelor but changed my decision only due to the word I had given to my father. But I cannot marry this woman because by doing so, I would be breaching the trust of that woman who wanted to marry me and who had rejected everybody for my sake." The deities then revealed to him that this lady was none other than Shailini whom he was talking about. "She had done a severe penance to be your wife." After saying this, the deities disappeared. Shailini requested him to accept her as his wife. "You have rescued me from this demon. I offer myself to you," said Shailini. Avikshit marries Shailini. Markandeya says, after Shailini had finished her lines, Avikshit told her that he was forced to abandon her in the past after getting defeated, but once again, he had regained her after defeating the demon. Both of them decided to get married in the forest itself. Right then, a Gandharva, Danaya, arrived there accompanied by many apsaras and revealed to Avikshit that Shailini was his daughter in her previous birth. Because of the curse given to her by sage Agastya, she was born to the king of Vishnu. Now you must accept her as your wife. Avikshit married Shailini under the supervision of Tambaru, the priest of the Gandharvas. Both of them then accompanied the Gandharvas to the Gandharva Loka. There, Shailini gave birth to a son. Knowing about the feats the child would accomplish in future, the Gandharvas celebrated his birth ceremony with great fanfare. After the birth ceremony, while Tambaru was eulogizing the child, everybody heard a heavenly voice, which said, "This child will become famous as Marat, he will become the ruler of all the Mahapals." Everybody was extremely satisfied by this forecast. Marat ascends the throne. Markandeya says, after the birth of Marat, Avikshit accompanied by Shailini returned to his father's palace. After making salutations to his father, he kept the newborn baby in his lap and told him that he had kept his word. Karandam became very pleased after seeing his grandson. In course of time, Marat grew up. He had mastered all the scriptures. He was also proficient in handling all kinds of weapons. There was nobody like him. Karandam had become old. He decided to go to the forest after making Avikshit the king, but Avikshit was not interested in becoming a king. He too wanted to go to the forest. He said, "The shame of the defeat still remains there. How can a person, who was not able to protect himself, protect his subjects?" Karandam tried his best to convince him to become his successor, but Avikshit was firm in his resolve. Finding no other option, Marat was made the king. Marat went to the forest and did penance for 1,000 years. His wife did the same and went to live in sage Bhargava's hermitage. A hermit advises Marat on behalf of Veera. Kraustuki asks Markandeya, "Oh, Lord, we want to know more about Marat." Markandeya says, "After becoming the king, Marat started ruling in a just manner. He performed many yajas under the supervision of numerous yajikas and esteemed priests. Anjira's son, Samvat and Brihaspati's brother were his chief priests under whose supervision the yajas used to be performed. Samvat had brought the peak of Manjavan mountain after uprooting it. For Marat, King Marat's palace and the sacred oblation site were constructed on this very mountain peak. One day, a hermit said to Marat, 'Your grandmother Veera is very tormented by the nuisance. The serpents are creating around the sacred oblation site. She is very displeased by your negligence. The serpents have bitten 7 sons of a sage and have also polluted the water of the sacred pond. The sages have started making offerings to the serpents to please them, instead of paying attention on the performance of the yajas. Although the sages are capable of destroying the serpents, yet they have decided against doing so as this is not their job. This is the job of a king. A king should be aware of each and every event taking place in his kingdom. You are not aware of the misdeeds of the serpents because you don't have any detective to keep you informed of such events. Being a king, it is your duty to protect your subjects by punishing the wrongdoers. If you don't do this, then you will become a sinner. Oh, king! Your grandmother is very much concerned about your negligent attitude and wants you to act in a way befitting a king. The serpents take the refuge of Bhaimini, of Shalini." Markandeya says, Marat was ashamed after hearing the sage's words. He cursed himself for his negligence. He picked up his bow and arrows in anger and went to the oblation site. When he reached there, he saw the dead bodies of 7 hermits lying on the ground. Being enraged, he picked up his most devastating weapon named Samvartak. The serpents became terrified as the tremendous amount of heat generated by this weapon had started to burn them. Unable to bear the tremendous heat caused by the weapon, the serpents took the refuge of Bhaimini, of Shalini, the mother of Marat. Sometime in the past, Shalini had promised to protect the serpents when in danger. Shalini requested her husband, Avikshit, to persuade Marat against killing the serpents. Avikshit told her that the intensity of Marat's anger was a result of the grave sins committed by the serpents. "But for your sake, I will request him to pardon the serpents. If he still does not agree to stop killing the serpents, then I will have no option but to destroy his weapon, Samvartak." After saying this, Avikshit picked up his bow and arrows and went to the oblation site accompanied by his wife. The hermit's sons become alive. Markandeya says, when Avikshit reached the oblation site, he found that the whole atmosphere was ablaze by the tremendous heat generated by Marat's weapon, Samvartak. He requested Marat to drop his weapon, but Marat refused by saying, "Oh, father, these serpents are the culprits. They have killed the hermit's sons. They have also polluted the reservoir and caused obstacles in the accomplishment of oblation rituals. I am never going to forgive them." Avikshit told Marat that the serpents had taken his refuge and hence he should forgive them to protect the honor of his father's promise. When Marat did not listen, Avikshit picked up his weapon to kill him. Marat inquired from him as to why he was trying to kill his own son, who was just performing his duty of protecting the oblation site from the serpents. Avikshit replied that he too was duty-bound to protect the serpents that had taken his refuge. When the sages saw both father and son were bent on killing each other, they intervened and advised them against killing each other. Right then, a sage came with the news that the serpents had agreed to make all the dead sons of the hermit alive. Thus, all the dead sons of the hermits became alive, and once again, the father and son were prevented from killing each other. From then onwards, Marat took proper care while ruling his kingdom. Later on, he married Sukshur, the daughter of Kikaya, Saindavi, the daughter of Sindharaj, Vayushmati, the daughter of Chediraj, etc. He had 18 sons from his wives, among whom Narashayant was the eldest. King Narashayant. Markandeya says, among the 18 sons of Marat, Narashayant was the eldest. Marat ruled over his kingdom for 70,015 years, after which Narashayant succeeded him as the king. Marat went to the forest to do penance. After becoming the king, Narashayant decided to perform a grand yajna, the like of which had never been accomplished by his ancestors. Narashayant made such huge donations to the Brahmins that it was more than enough for their future generations to come. Once, Narashayant decided to organize another yajna grander than the earlier one, but no priest was found to supervise it. At his repeated requests, some Brahmins agreed to supervise the yajna. But this particular yajna was unique of its kind because the Brahmins played the part of host as well as that of priests. The Brahmins made donations to the Brahmins who were acting as priests. In this grand yajna, crores of yajnas were performed in all the directions of the earth at one time. This grand yajna was possible only because of the wealth donated to the Brahmins by King Narashayant. Narashayant was such a religious and virtuous king. Narashayant felt joyous that due to his donations, the Brahmins had become wealthy, and at the same time, he was also sad that his desire of performing a grand yajna was not going to be accomplished as the Brahmins no longer needed donations. Sumana chooses Dhamma as her husband. Markandeya says, Dhamma was the son of Narashayant. His mother was Indrasena, the daughter of Babru. He became the master in archery under the tutelage of Vrishpava. He also learned the nuances of handling other kinds of weapons under the guidance of Dundubi. He learned the scriptures from sage Shakti and the art of yoga from a Shartishan. Sumana, the daughter of King Charashama, had chosen Dhamma as her husband in a Swayamvara. But Mahanand, Vayushman and Mahadanu did not like her decision, as they too wanted to marry her. All three of them decided to abduct her by force and marry whoever among them she decided to marry with. Their evil intentions were corroborated by the friends of Dhamma. Thus, all three of them abducted Sumana. Dhamma became angry. He asked all the kings who were present in the Swayamvara, "Tell me whether Swayamvara is religious or irreligious." One of the kings said that certainly a Swayamvara is religious and only Dhamma has the right to marry Sumana as she had herself chosen him. But some other kings supported Dhamma's opponents. They said, Rakshas Vivaha is the norm prevalent among people possessing arms. Only such a person has a right to marry Sumana who has defeated his rivals. Dhamma became furious with them. He knew that they were saying such things out of jealousy. But still he decided to accept their proposal. He threw an open challenge by saying, "Anybody who wants to die may abduct my wife in front of my eyes." A tremendous battle was fought between Dhamma and his opponents. At first, Mahanand came forward to fight him with a sword in his hand. Dhamma showered a volley of arrows at him. All the arrows were neutralized by Mahanand. After that, Mahanand jumped and climbed on the chariot of Dhamma. Dhamma severed his head. After the killing of Mahanand, Vayushman came forward to fight Dhamma, but his sword was broken into 2 pieces by the assault of Dhamma. Dhamma then killed his charioteer. After that, Vayushman picked up his spiked mace, but Dhamma destroyed even this mace. In the battle, Vayushman got injured and fell on the ground. Vayushman quit the idea of fighting. Seeing him reluctant to fight, Dhamma spared his life. At last, Charashama married his daughter Sumana with Dhamma. After staying for some days at his father-in-law's place, Dhamma returned home accompanied by his wife Sumana.